Our opening news is about Sasha Banks. There is a lot to cover here, so let's break through it as smoothly as we can as we talk about what is actually out there, the different reports that are coming in to basically complement the YouTube video from a little earlier today that you can check out on my YouTube channel, which if you haven't already subscribed is in the link that I've just posted. So, Sasha Banks has been missing in action from the WWE for a month now, ever since the SmackDown before the Summerslam Go Home show. At the same time, she's been far from invisible. In fact, she's been all over the place. Any rumours of COVID or breaching protocols or any of that is severely questionable when you consider the fact that she's literally been out and about basically every day and appearing on different websites, restaurants, training with new people. She's been the most visible an invisible person can be. She's been in Las Vegas hyping up a SummerSlam that she apparently didn't intend on wrestling at. She's been at several SmackDown shows without wrestling, and judging by the latest rumours, she's right now negotiating a brand new contract, which to be fair, it's about the right time for those conversations to start. Now, as regards negotiating a new contract and missing in action, this isn't the first time we've heard this about Sasha Banks, and we need to consider that when we have these conversations. One of my first big news reports, which really broke through and connected with people in a big way, was my counter report to all of those rumours that everybody remembers about Sasha Banks and Bayley having a tantrum on the locker room floor after losing their tag team championships to the Iconics at WrestleMania. I reported that time was that Banks' absence was not being treated as anything out of the ordinary, and that Vince McMahon wasn't at all concerned. He was having a mental health break, proven true shortly afterwards. It's not a report that anybody else has or had at the time, but it's a report that a lot of people have clearly forgotten that I made. With this in mind, I'm not completely convinced that she's screwing Vince over by refusing to appear on SmackDown until she gets a better contract. That said, nobody knows that much about the actual details, with several outlets clearly refusing to listen to news that they didn't themselves report. There is a lot of questionable information out there, contradictory information, and this is one of the reasons I like to bring up the rumour look back that we do on Mondays, which shows that wrestling rumours have a correct rate of about 56% as to proven true. Dave Meltzer recently also added a report to the Sasha Banks situation, stating that the WWE knew Sasha Banks would not be wrestling at SummerSlam for 8 days before SummerSlam, which means they knew from the SmackDown before the Go Home show when she introduced her proxies, Carmella and Zelina Vega. Does anyone else remember anyone else creating a report around this time very similar? This confirms my report that Banks wasn't booked for the Go Home show because they knew she wouldn't be wrestling at SummerSlam, despite other reporters pushing back on it without any evidence presented. I spent a little time waiting. There's a reason I haven't mentioned this report so far. Waiting to see if those same people go after Meltzer, and yet somehow, no sign of it. Nothing. Do I need to provide any more evidence of the bullshit levied at any reporter who actually cares about facts? Anyway, to release the passive aggression a little. Sasha Banks clearly was booked for SmackDown last week, given that she continues to be visible in the way that only Sasha Banks can. A lot was removed from SmackDown last week, including appearances from Raw superstars, a women's tag team match, and an Owens and Baron Corbin segment. A lot was removed, and a lot apparently went way over time. Everyone knew that Sasha Banks was going to be there because she made sure everybody knew. She was as visible as you can get. This gives Banks herself immense power either in negotiating or just in not being on screen. Sasha Banks only recently returned in the weeks before SummerSlam to prepare herself to wrestle Bianca Belair. Instead, Becky Lynch was called in last minute and still doesn't have Becky Lynch place on it. So what's next for Sasha Banks? I can't see her leaving the WWE. In fact, my suspicion would be that she's currently not wrestling because she needs to reduce risk of injury for acting endeavours, but that is just speculation on my part, knowing that she's getting more offers now than she had previously. Basically, if there's one thing I'm trying to say here, it's this. Chill out. Sasha Banks is one of the biggest names in the WWE and one of Vince McMahon's favourite people in the world. Given the choice of who to throw out of an overweighted plane, Vince would absolutely throw Shane McMahon out before he let Sasha Banks go. To be fair, Shane would probably survive as well. It's not a surprise to hear that she might be looking for a limited date contract. This is something we've spoken about at length here, and that would then release her to go full Hollywood. As I've been saying for a while, these limited date contracts are very popular, and the bigger you get, the more bargaining power you have. From where I'm sitting, Sasha Banks deserves it. Lance says, she is still so young, I don't want to see her go full Dwayne just yet. She's one of the few things to look forward to. I don't think she's going full The Rock, but I think she's more going John Cena. I think that's the modern way of doing it. Bailey says at some point in the future, 3 of the 4 horsewomen are going to have limited dates. Sasha, Becky, Charlotte all have Hollywood potential. I believe that the vast majority of the top level in WWE will eventually be working limited date contracts. I think that is the future of the company, to work limited dates, and I think that is the right move because it means you're less likely to get injured, you're a bit more special when you are there, you get more breaks. It's a way of looking after yourself, and I think when we consider wrestlers are wrestling longer, limited date contracts like the one Randy Orton has been on for a long time can be a huge benefit. We do naturally still have to ask questions about Edge's contract. We were told it would be limited date, and yet we're seeing him a lot more than we were told we would. Has he got a new contract, or was that report just wrong? CEA says, Sasha seems like a really smart person and someone who knows their worth, so I think she will be getting a huge payday because of that main event, and I completely agree. Michael says if Sasha is to come back before Extreme Rules, this week would be perfect in Bianca's hometown. It would, but to be fair, when it comes to Sasha Banks, every week is perfect. Welcome, Boss Man says.